get absorbed in, and you are Sonic.
What's up, everybody? I'm Taylor Olmstead, and I want to welcome you to No Repeat, a podcast where we pick 3 songs every week with no repeats and no do-overs to create a perfect playlist for every occasion life throws at you. Joining me are my co-hosts Tyler Reed.
I literally forgot about the Mars Volta until this exact second.
And Sean Evans.
Eagles of Death Metal, gotta check out that rig rundown.
This week, at Drumming Seth on Twitter challenged us to find the perfect song for driving, preferably a long car ride, and discuss.
So, I feel like this was an appropriate challenge for this week as we're coming up on the Thanksgiving holiday and prepping for holiday travel. I don't know about you guys, but the holidays for me always involved hundreds of miles in the car. My parents did not raise us anywhere close to either of their parents, and so it was about 7 hours round trip to both sets of grandparents. And now that I live in Atlanta, it's 14 hours round trip back to my parents.
Goodness.
Yeah, so at the holidays, I spend a ton of time in the car. And because of that, I always go for really long songs when I'm taking car trips, because I need as much music as I can get to get through the 4 hours of rural Tennessee that I have to drive through. So all of the songs on my playlist were like, I think the shortest one was 4 minutes, the longest one was like 12 and a half minutes. I was really just going for like the monolithic mega songs this time around.
Okay, I'm gonna have to agree and diverge from what you just said. I also live quite a distance away from my direct family, so anytime I want to go see them, I do have to take between a 14 and 12 hour round trip drive, which is a long time. I don't have to do it alone, luckily, so that's good. But I actually don't have any songs longer than maybe 4.5 minutes, because I don't really like long songs, which presented a challenge for me in this because it was a long drive. But I thought, what's a good earbug that's going to help you get through this long drive that will last only a short amount of time, but be really good in that short amount of time to keep you moving? Like a good pick-me-up song.
Sean, keeping to the old proverb of no stairway. No long songs, definitely no stairway to heaven.
A great road trip song, but I did not want to burn it on this challenge.
Right. Again, another week, another time when I could pick something that I really didn't want to pick this early on. So I like that we chose not to pick anything too long, because there's quite a lot of long songs out there. Like The Change of Seasons by Dream Theater, which is in a whopping 30 minutes. Or I believe, Taylor, you said you had another song. There's a Pink Floyd song.
I mean, there's a lot of Pink Floyd songs that are really long, but Echoes by Pink Floyd is 26 and a half minutes long, and that just seemed like too much. And to be honest, I don't think I've ever sat through the whole thing, and I've certainly never listened to it behind the wheel of a car because I would fall asleep.
Have you ever listened to the 1812 Overture all the way through? It's like 16 minutes long, depending on who plays it.
No.
Very good.
Should I?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it'd be worthwhile in a car because you get that surround sound. So when the cannons go off, you really get like a...
You
boom.
really feel it, yeah.
Right, instead of just kind of it being like in the distance or something.
So that brings up an interesting question, though, because I asked a few other people I know who live far away from their family about this challenge. And I was like, what songs do you listen to on long road trips? And they were like, well, what part of the road trip? And I thought that was a really interesting point, because there are some songs that you need to get you going out of the gate when you're like going into a monolithically long drive and you're like, man, I just need to like pedal to the floor, let's go. But then there's another song that you need like 4 hours in where you're starting to droop a little bit and you need to wake yourself back up. Were you guys thinking of a particular part of the drive with your picks?
The start. If I'm being honest, it was the start.
Mine was probably about midway, because typically I don't really go very far for any holidays or vacations or anything like that. Usually they're about 30 minutes. But for work, I'm typically driving about 2 hours, either to Columbus or Indianapolis or Louisville. So it's a pretty long stretch of highway, so I have lots of time to kind of pick stuff. So usually I am usually there at like 6 a.m. Like I'm starting at 6. So I typically listen to my usual like jazz chill beats and then kind of slowly ramps up. I probably listen to a few songs with vocals after that, podcast, and then I probably go into just kind of some weird stuff at that point if I'm still not there yet.
Yeah, for me, I was going for like that point in the car where it feels like you're kind of hitting the hump. Like, it may not necessarily be midway, but you're just starting to feel like, oh man, I'm tired of driving. Like, you're getting that cabin fever, like you're kind of like, man, I need to like move my legs around. I'm tired of sitting, but there's not another rest stop for like 20 miles. And so you just got to like power through for the next half hour. Like, that's where my song plays. So I think since Sean's song is intended for the start of a long drive, we may as well start there and go in order. So, Sean, what was your song?
So this week for my song, I chose John Michael Montgomery's song, Sold.
My mind told me I should proceed with caution, but my heart said go ahead and make a bid on that. And I said, hey, pretty lady, won't you give me a sign? I'd give anything to make you mine on mine. I'll be your bidding and be at your beck and call. Yeah, I've never seen anyone looking so fine. Man, I gotta have her, she's a one of a kind. I'm going once, going twice. I'm sold on the lady in the second row. She's an 8, she's a 9, she's a 10, I know. She's got ruby red lips, blonde hair, blue eyes, and I'm about to bid my heart goodbye.
When I drive, I usually go through rural areas, and I do kind of have an affinity for country. I listened to it a lot when I was a kid, and as I'm really practicing guitar a lot more, I have an affinity for it because it's readable and it's catchy. The song structure is simpler. So as I've been listening to this, I was like, oh, this is a really good song. I would actually really like to drive to this. So yeah, what do you guys think? Is this making it on your road playlist?
So the first time through this song, the first time through the chorus, I was like, no way. I hate this. I was like, I don't even know if I can talk about this on the podcast. Like, I just despise this song so much.
Same.
I had that visceral
100%
I had that
same.
visceral reaction that I had when I was a teenager to country music of like, this is my dad's music and I hate that. But then by the end of the song, I had the chorus stuck in my head, and then I listened to it again, and I was like, you know what? Okay. Like, I don't think I would listen to this just sitting around the house or at work or anything, but I can see how behind the wheel, this song could get you moving. Like, it's got a nice propulsive, simple snare drum hit to it that I really enjoy. And the guitar work on it is excellent. I'm not the biggest fan of his vocal delivery. Like, there are times where I just feel like he's kind of barely singing, which I guess is like a stylistic way of doing this kind of country music, but it isn't for me. But I can, like, if this song came on the radio while I was driving through Kentucky or Tennessee or Pennsylvania or something, like, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change the channel. It's a good song. It also has a super dumb music video that I highly recommend people watch. Links in the show notes.
Oh, it's
Listen,
so
I gotta
It's
say,
so,
I am a
so
sucker
dumb.
for dance battle music videos, and I was not expecting to see this at the end, having a dance battle in a country music video, but it's on right now, and it's pretty good.
I think it's interesting that at some point, country also thought that they were like, you know what? Maybe we should also rap while we're singing about the things, like about our trucks and our dogs and our whiskey and our boots.
I don't know if I'd really call this rap as much as it. I mean, it's like set at an auction. The song is called "Sold." It kind of has a very
that's really
auctiony
what
feel to
is.
it, which I think is kind of cool.
But no, Tyler's
that
right,
is kind of
because
like a growing
contemporary 21st century country has included a lot of hip-hop elements, but this is obviously before all of that happened.
And I made a specific choice when I was looking for songs. I targeted 90s country. I didn't really search out modern country because I'm not a huge fan of modern country. I think as I dive deeper into country, I'll probably will eventually come over to modern country. But I kind of I want to get a feeling for the roots before I move into the present day, just so I have a better understanding.
Well, right. I mean, at face value, there's nothing inherently wrong with country music. Like it's a genre of music that certain people enjoy. It's
Certain people, huh?
famous.
Are you one of them people?
There's a subset
Okay.
of people, whatever. It is one of those genres when people ask what kind of music do you like, it is it's they say I don't like rap and I don't like country. You know, that's like what someone says out loud when you're like 12. But I mean, what the problem becomes with country is I would say is kind of what we were talking about already, is that contemporary country kind of goes into a very like hyper produced direction where everything's so squeaky clean, it's so consistent. You know, it kind of loses a lot of kind of the roots where it's very rough, very gritty, very, you know, a little more soulful. And it's like, you listen to the song and you're like, he can sing, you know, it's a pleasant sound, you know, the guitars are great, you know, it's about something, you know, there's a good little, you know, it's a well-constructed song. Unfortunately, then you listen to another song on the same album and you're like, okay, well, this is kind of still the same kind of thing. And then you listen to another song, and you're like, okay, well, that's still kind of, you know, like, it kind of gets a little, it feels like it gets a little samey after a while.
So to bring it back to Driving, is a song that has a little bit more grit to it, a little less polished, is that a better driving song? Because I feel like, not to spoil what you guys are talking about, or to spoil your all picks, but all of our songs do have a little bit more of a less, I don't know, polished feel to them. Like, it's not because they're older, they just don't, they do have more of a garagey sound.
Well, I think there's something about Driving that I think brings out the maybe not Americana influence, but a certain kind of like ruggedness in music. I feel like for me, like, I really want driving music to have this kind of like personality to it, or this like emotional emphasis to it that comes with that grittiness. I feel like really polished top 40 pop just doesn't really like hold my attention when I'm driving.
Mm-hmm. So is this song on your, yes or no, is this song on your long drive playlist?
I mean, yeah, I'll put it in the rotation.
Is this song going to go into my rotation? Probably not, but I definitely respect your choice, and I definitely think it fits for this challenge.
Okay.
Which is,
I'm happy
you know,
with that.
About as good as you're probably going to get.
I respect that.
All right, so the song I chose was Between Days by Red House Painters.
Forward of movement, forward of feeling, forward of life. Channel crackles, Spanish chirps in the night. Don't feel sour in the fall.
So I first heard the song actually when I was working at the cafe. It just kind of played over. It was kind of like a shoegazy kind of alternative Pandora station. And I just remember I was sweeping and or mopping, and it just kind of kept going. And I enjoyed it the whole time because all I could really hear was this guitar riff that's just like constant, always this sort of like secular riff that just never stops going. And it really just, I don't know, I guess got me in the mood. It made me feel productive. It just kind of gave me a drive to kind of keep moving forward. And I think the song I wanted to pick was something that wasn't too energetic. Like, I didn't want something that would make you that excited, because I have a long way to go and I can't really get there that fast. So I wanted kind of something in the shoegaze kind of like alternative kind of direction, you know, maybe a little emo kind of feel, you know, not so much that it's a depressing drive, but it's just to kind of temper expectations, I guess.
So I thought this song actually had more of a classic rock vibe and not so much a shoegaze vibe, because it sounded a little bit too, it wasn't lo-fi, and that's what I think about when I listen to shoegaze rock. And I guess another downside of it was I absolutely hate that this song is 8.5 minutes long. A pet peeve of mine is that if it takes more than 5 minutes to say, you need to work on editing it. It's just a ballad at that point, and it's not something that I'm that interested in. But it does remind me of the Foo Fighters, and I like that. That's really cool. And there's something that goes on like right at the 7:30 mark with like a phaser or something, and you kind of hear this like weird guitar noise in the back, and that was really interesting too, because after, like you said, a long song of almost droning guitars, when you I could kind of like keyed in on that little difference. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Yeah, so Red House Painters was fronted by Mark Kozelek, who is now known as Sun Kill Moon. He's one of these like indie darling kind of songwriter guys, and he's just not one that I've ever really like latched onto. And so when this song came across as your pick, I was like, oh man, it's another Mark Kozelek song. Like, there's something about him that just doesn't really work for me. I don't know if I'm gonna like this. And again, like Sean's song, the first time I listened to it, I was like, man, this is just 8 minutes of like drone, and like his vocals kind of monotone in this too. Like he has a decent vocal range, but he's just not really showing it off in this song. But after listening to it a couple times, I did hear that kind of 80s, 90s, like alt-rock grunge influence that Sean's talking about with the Foo Fighters bit. I looked the song up. It came out in 2001, which gave me a little more context as to why it sounds the way that it does. And I don't know, it just kind of grew on me. Like, the more I thought about the song, the more I realized, like, this is a really good driving song. It's not super energetic, but it has this kind of, like, constant hum to it that I feel like I associate with freeway driving in the Midwest in particular, where you're just like flat roads and lots of corn. Mm-hmm. Like, and I know that Mark Kozelek is also from the Midwest, like we all are. So I don't know if that was a specific influence, but it sounds like driving through the Midwest feels. So I have to give it credit for that.
I actually took a bit of a dive into more of their work after I heard this song. And really, this is the only kind of song on this album, and I think probably in their entire work, that's kind of like this. All the other songs are much more, kind of more like in the emo range, little less rock based. So this kind of was kind of a specific song that appealed to me for a different reason than people probably enjoy this band. I even looked into Sun Kill Moon, I think, for a little bit. And I kind of liked his work. You know, I think one of his most popular songs is like My Friend Brian or something like that. And I mean, I was kind of into it. You know, I was like, I'll put this in my pocket for a later episode, maybe. I was kind of also just looking for, you know, I just didn't have enough time, I think. That's not true. I had plenty of time, but I don't know, I feel like I was trying to go beyond my reach, because I feel like a lot of times when I'm driving like a lot, I kind of just pick whatever's the newest thing, like something that someone recommends to me, or something kind of like fresh and that I haven't really kind of ventured into before. That's kind of my opportunity to kind of play a little bit. So this song kind of felt like it had the kind of vibe I was kind of looking for. You know, I probably would have picked like maybe like a Japanese breakfast kind of song, or like there's like some Japan droids I was kind of messing with, and I just couldn't quite get there. And this is the kind of song I ended up with. I mean, I still like it. It's still a song that's going to be like, you know, it's on this playlist forever. And I agree with Sean, it's probably way too long, but that just means I don't have to like repeat it, you know, to hear that riff, that groove, which is fine. And it's like, of course, like, I'm not a vocals guy, so I don't really care what he's saying, but like the vocals add a nice break from the guitar riff, so I was like, this is fine, this is good, I like this.
Yeah, it's an interesting pick. I'm really glad you showed this to me, because I would have totally written this off, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'd put this on a driving playlist. So
I am going last this week because I feel like my song is a little bit further into the drive. Like I was saying, this is like hour 4, hour 5 of my drive back to Ohio. This song is Teeth Like God's Shoe Shine by Modest Mouse.
The moths are the soon to be ghost towns. Well, so long, farewell, goodbye.
So Teeth Like God's Shoe Shine is the first song on Modest Mouse's The Lonesome Crowded West. Lonesome Crowded West is my favorite road trip album. I really dove deep on this album on a road trip with my friend Brian, where we drove from Cincinnati, Ohio to Bar Harbor, Maine, which is the highest point on the East Coast. It was like a 6-day back and forth road trip. and we both really enjoy this album. I was really torn between a couple of songs on this album, but I feel like because it's the first song on the album, and because it has so many different dynamic shifts from fast to slow, quiet to loud, like Teeth Like God's Shoe Shine just feels like driving to me. And I mostly only listen to this song when I'm driving. Like, it makes me want to drive when I listen to it, which I think is important because, like I said, when you're at hour 4 or hour 5 of a long trip, you need songs that make you want to feel like you want to move. And this song just has this, like, movement to it that I really enjoy. I also, like, the lyrics of this song are really interesting and compelling, which is part of the reason I like it, because I'm a big lyrics person. Isaac Brock is a fantastic songwriter, and this song has a lot of really like dark existential dread to it that I kind of enjoy in the lyric. The false ending at, I think it's around the 4-minute mark, is fantastic as well. I love when it just like roars back at you with that final coda. Yeah, I mean, it's an 8-minute long song, almost 9 minutes, so it satisfied my long song request, but I'm sure that it's probably a little too much for some people on this panel.
I just want to start by saying that I do have my hater shades on right now because this was bearable for me at the best. I just want to also point out that in no way did Seth say that this song had to be long. He said it was for a long drive. It didn't have to be a long song.
I can only listen to long songs when I'm taking long drives.
So that will be my first critique, is that at 6.5 minutes, this song is way more than it needed to be. Wow. It has really odd tonality. His voicing is shrill. It's awful to listen to.
Now, before we get too excited, Sean, have you ever enjoyed a Modest Mouse?
Yes.
Okay.
This
so
is very early Modest Mouse. This is 1996.
Okay.
So.
No, and that's why, because this band is almost unlistenable. It's just hard for me to listen to. I just see, it just felt like the false ending was a disjointed attempt to make a grunge song right when grunge was dying. I don't understand how this is the same band that made Float On. Like, I know that my brother went to go see this band in concert, and I didn't realize that their old stuff sounded like this, but I probably would have asked for my money back.
It's important to note that they had a lot of lineup changes. This is the original lineup, which is a lot more grungy. By the time your brother was into them, they had swapped out a bunch of people and gained Johnny Marr, the former guitar player from the Smiths, as their lead guitar player. And that totally changed the sound of the band. So
yeah, that's probably for the best. I could see why.
They're basically not the same band anymore, except they have the same vocalist and the same bass player.
And let's just be real. The vocalist was really the only part that mattered.
I would argue that, but a lot of people don't like Isaac Brock for personal and musical reasons. So.
Oh, and also I didn't think the lyrics were that good for a road trip. Sometimes the last place that you want to have an existential crisis is in the middle of a highway at 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, Sean.
What can I say? You just gotta drive through the pain.
Oh my god.
Just gotta drive through that pain.
Tyler, please tell me you didn't hate this song.
I have, like, my hater eye patch on. I'm turning a blind eye to my own personal preferences and thinking about the playlist as a whole. So I normally do like Modest Mouse. I would agree that this specifically goes against what my mantra was for this challenge, which was something that was not grating. This was right out the gate, very, very grating. That being said, I mean, like, I try not to make my music make me angry or sad, which I realize is probably problematic in certain ways. But, like, I totally respect your decision to, like, have a song that's kind of like is this not necessarily frustrating, but this is kind of like it's not supposed to be pleasant. You're not listening to this because it's a nice sounding song, right?
Right, it's cathartic.
Okay. So, like, I can get that. So, I mean,
let me ask you a question. Sorry,
okay.
Tyler, I don't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Did you pick this song as an objectively road trip song, or did you pick this song because you have an attachment to it from a road trip?
It's both. Like I said, I do a lot of very long driving, and Modest Mouse has always been a band that I liked for long driving because they feel like a band that does a lot of that. Like their first album is called This Is a Long Drive for Someone with Nothing to Think About. They're kind of a band on the road. And this song in particular, I listen to a lot in the car because it just feels like being in the car to me. And that may be because I have really fond attachment to it from being in the car. But I also just think like it feels like driving, you know, like it feels like going up and down hills or like speeding up and slowing down. Like it has this kind of like ebb and flow to it that feels a lot like driving on the highway.
So,
Okay.
Taylor, do you have any road rage at all?
Oh, for sure. I live in Atlanta.
Okay, all right. I was like, if you don't experience the intense frustration of being in a vehicle with other people around.
It occurs to me that you haven't been in a car with me since I was probably 16. But
I
yes,
guess not.
I do experience some road rage.
Good, that means you're a healthy, full, able-bodied American. So, I mean, I will say that the song is not my preference, the band is my preference, and I respect your decision to choose the song.
I wanted to make a bold choice. What can I say?
You know what? We've really taken off our nice person gloves, and we've really started being real. It's the real world on this podcast.
All right, so now it's time for B-sides, and these are songs that almost made the cut but didn't get into the top, and we can reuse these songs on further challenges. So, anybody got some notable B-sides?
Oh, I had a bunch. I'll just share the notable ones. I had another Modest Mouse song off of the same album. That song's called Cowboy Dan. I did have I Will Possess Your Heart as a B-side this week. I know we talked about that before.
See, that's fine. That's a good choice.
Yeah. The shortest song on my playlist this week was A Dustland Fairy Tale by The Killers. The longest song on my playlist this week was Elvia Elviaquez by the Mars Volta off of Francis the Mute, followed by Welcome to the Machine by Pink Floyd. I also had Where the Streets Have No Name by U2, but I decided I wanted to save that because that song's...
Oh, good choice.
I wanted to save it, though, because that song's just too good.
Oh, yeah, you're right, though.
And we're trying to avoid overt references to the topic in our songs.
I don't even care. That song is so good. I just don't want to use it on episode 4 of this podcast. Oh, and then my last notable B-side, kind of on the nose, Band on the Run by Wings.
Also a good one. So this week I have Blue Monday by New Order.
Nice.
If you know that song. I also have There Is a Light That Never Goes Out by The Smiths.
Okay.
I have Many, Many, Many by Jacques Durac, who's a French guy. It was like a popular alternative song in the 60s. I have All Along the Watchtower, the Jimi Hendrix version of it. And then I also have Helter Skelter by the Beatles. I don't know why. I feel like that would probably be my mid drive song, you know, or once I get to Maryland, because sometimes you need a little pump up when you're going through Maryland, because that could make your drive 3 hours longer.
I tried on the new Julia Holtier album. It did not work for me, and it didn't work for this challenge because I don't think it fit into a playlist succinctly. So I opted to not do that. There was a Sylvan Esso song that I had on deck. Like I said, I thought about a Japanese breakfast song, but I couldn't figure something out. And then there was one more. Or was there not? Maybe I'm just an idiot. Ante Up by MOP. Just as a wild card.
I'm so glad that Ante Up was on your list. I feel like that's going to be a contentious pick when somebody finally chooses it for the main event.
My favorite part is that I only know about that song because you showed me a video where it was a bunch of Muppets, like, just... There's a bunch of clips of the Muppets just over that song, and I was like, this is very good.
Or that's my only visual association with that song in my brain. Is that YouTube video. Links in the show notes. Thanks everybody for listening to this week's episode of No Repeat. We really appreciate it. Tyler, if people want to school you on their knowledge of Mark Kozelek, where can they do that?
You can find my design illustration work at rudepets.club, and you can find me on the socials as Rude Pets Club on Instagram and Twitter.
Sean, if people have recommendations of good 90s country for you, where can they send those?
Oh, they can find me on Instagram and Twitter at TellySean.
And internet, if you also want to confess your love of Modest Mouse, despite Sean's intense hatred, you can tweet at me at TC Olmstead. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Google Play or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you have a challenge for a future episode of the show, tweet them at us at NoRepeatPod or email them to norepeatpod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week with 3 more songs and another episode of No Repeat.